I actually don't know how to tell whether an owl is a boy or a girl because it's like a cloaca, right? I know with parakeets they have like the different color bands on their noses, and that's the easy way to tell them apart. What I'm getting at is we're throwing chairs at Owlboy this week. It's from D-Pad Studio on the lovely, lovely FNA engine, and helped the wonderful and sexy Mr. Flippity Ethan Lee. He ran his sexy fingers and caressed his keyboard and helped produce this for us.
Well, did the OS requirement give it away?
Yes. Yeah. Also glibc OS, of course. It clocks in at around $24 if you're in the United States, $30 if you're in Canada, and 22 euros if you live in that moon country that I'm going to say Mordor. What is it? Never heard of it. Owlboy is a high-bit adventure game where you can fly and explore a brand new world in the clouds. Pick up your friends, bring them as you explore the open skies, and then drop them from insane heights and laugh as they die. Overcome obstacles and greater enemies in one of the most detailed adventures of this era. So let's kick this off with the chairquisition. 1 chair means that's garbage. 2 chairs means that's meh. 3 chairs means that's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's amazeballs. We also got our categories. Oh, Doom. Thanks with the working. Shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So let's get on into this. Caca, then. Caca.
Squawk, squawk, blam, blam. Fuck, I'm dead. But not in this game. Over here on the box of business. The 8150 980 powered UHD displayed. Running the Ubuntu 1604 LTS. Everything worked, man. I mean, every single thing worked. No problems, great frame rates. Just a smooth experience. I really tried to mess around with it, going from, 3840 by 2160 back to 1080p. Didn't care. Just laughed at me. And I really wanted to set it on fire because that's what I do to things that laugh at me. But I couldn't. I really enjoyed it. Good times. Had by me. 4 chairs if I can get the thing to load.
Ha 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 then. Haha. Yeah, on Fedora 2464-bit with the GTX 980 i7 6700K in both the full screen and windowed modes, because those are the 2 resolution options you get. It runs at 60 FPS because while this game is beautiful, we'll talk more about that later on. It is not that demanding on your system. FNA is fairly well optimized, and these sprites are sprites, so they're not really hitting 3D acceleration. So, 4 chairs for that.
Yeah, and it doesn't suffer from that other FNA game we threw chairs at recently, which didn't scale when you set it to full screen. It just upscaled. I can't even remember what it was. But yeah, it would just upscale 720p to 1080p, at least on my end, and it looked awful. Here, that's not the case because it actually scales properly when you set it to full screen to whatever your monitor's resolution happens to be. So on my end, with Ubuntu Mate 1604 and the FX 8370E and the GTX 1080, I had absolutely no issues. 4 chairs.
All right, well, that's 4 chairs for Mixed with Working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds. Ven. It's Hipster Pixel, so you hate it, right?
I love it. Just put it all on my face, chest, and neck, man. It is all over me. It's really nice to see a Hipster Pixel game that doesn't make my epilepsy bleed. Huge fan of that. What this game looks like is something that was produced on the never-released Super Duper Nintendo, because this is like Super Nintendo. They're really clearly going for that aesthetic, but it's just got an extra plus organ on it, and it really shows off. It's bright, it's colorful, amazingly detailed. This is Hipster Pixel done right. The only time I've seen something done this right, this true to form, would be like Axiom Verge. And that was basically, I'm going to make Metroid with more pixely stuff. Really in that vein. I'm digging it, man. I mean, the sounds, the background music, they're all legit for what they're going for. I never had a SNES, but, a couple of my friends had a SNES, and I was like, man, this is like being 8, 9 years old and sitting back and playing this business. Again, it definitely brings back those types of memories. And I mean, it's completely spot on for what they're trying to do with this. So I don't think I've ever gotten to do this with a Hipster Pixel game, but yeah, out of the box on this with a 4.
I think Hyper Light Drifter also got 4 from you for Hipster Pixel stuff. That, and again, that was an example of just absolutely gorgeous pixel art. They're actually doing something legitimately cool and beautiful with the medium, as opposed to, oh yeah, no, this is a Hipster Pixel game that's actually a gig in size because we can't write engines. But I mean, if you look at the blogs of like the visual artists who worked on this game, you can easily tell how much effort these guys put into the aesthetic. Everything is just so lovingly done and shaded. It all looks great. I love the faux comic book shading style they use when they do that big siege cinematic right after the first dungeon. There are lots of little cool environment transitions. The environments are beautifully done. Sometimes they're a little limited because you just go up and they're kind of just these weird transition spaces. But that's sort of a homage to that style of game done on the Super Nintendo. Speaking of which, this looks way better than anything the Super Nintendo could crap out. But again, they got the notes right. It's an homage. It's supposed to evoke that feeling and improve it because we have computers that run trillions of operations a second as opposed to that little crappy MIPS processor that the Super Nintendo had. But yeah, no, the environment transitions are really cool as you like change areas. It'll start combining aspects of like the two areas, and that'll start fading away as the new area comes into dominance as you transition through it. It's super well done. The animations and the cutscenes and whatnot are fantastic as well. Everyone emotes so much, and it's just so lovingly done. I can't stop gushing about how beautiful this game is. The sound is there. It really is evocative of that era of games where it's sort of like this mysterious but mystical type soundtrack. It's very well done. I will give this a solid 4 chairs. Bravo, guys.
It looks good. It looks really, really good. And I can already hear some people going, "Oh my god! Pedro likes how a pixel platformer game looks. Fire and brimstone must be raining from the skies." No, I just hate lazy pixelated graphics made by people who don't give a fuck and just want to skirt by on the whole quote-unquote retro look. The visuals in Owlboy, even though they are evocative of the whole 16-bit era, they're really finely detailed and they just look good. The one thing that really kills it for me in the shiny and the sounds, it's the background music. It didn't really do it for me, and I just ended up muting it because it got in the way of the atmosphere in some scenes, and if something is going to get between me and my immersion while I'm trying to enjoy a video game, if I have a say in it, it's going to get noped. And that's what happened. I guess they also tried to keep the whole sound effect thing simple but effective enough to complement what's happening on screen, and it works for the most part, so I can give it a solid 3 chairs.
Yeah, Pedro's just mad that they didn't get Hate Week to do the soundtrack because it's a game about birds. They need a band fronted by a bird to complete the package. That's 3 chairs for shiny and sounds. Up next is Control, then.
Well, something a lot of development houses and game studios, they just get hella wrong because they're going to make something Nintendo hard, which isn't really Nintendo hard, but it definitely harkens back to that era. But, you know, when I see hipster pixel, it's like, yep, okay, it looks the part. And then, you grab your controller organ, and you're like, yeah, that's usually where they fall flat because they have some bullshit, laggy-ass controls. And I know this cliche is tighten up the controls. A lot of games definitely need that. Because if you're doing retro platforming and you really want to do it legit and you want to do it right, the controls need to be wicked tight. Unintentional rhyme. Ladies and gentlemen, these controls are wicked tight. Everything is spot on. You notice this immediately when you start playing the game. That you got something a bit special. Something some genuine love went into. Like Super Rad Ray Gun. The controls were okay. This really makes you feel like you're playing some 16-bit era well done platformer, and just good on you lot for doing that. I'm guessing you could, I was playing with the X-Clone controller, no issues. I guess you could play with the keyboard, maybe, if you hate yourself. I probably wouldn't suggest that, but yeah, another 4.
Yeah, because this game is using FNA, everything works out of the box. You get correct button prompts on whatever controller you're using. I was using a DualShock, and lo and behold, I don't have to stop for every time I see a button prompt to go, okay, what does that actually mean? Because the X on the Xbox controller and the X on the PlayStation controller are 2 very, very different things. The one weird bit I had was just using the triggers for Owlboy's stuff or using the triggers for like the shooting and the grabbing manipulation. Because I keep assuming it's been wired in my brain so far that square is the do stuff button. and that's just the drop your ally button. So that's what you saw while I was screaming and streaming that game earlier this week. But I figured it out. Yeah, 4 chairs. This very well done controls. No complaints.
Yeah, I played 5 hours of this game up to this point, and I'm coming close to the end. I can tell by the way the story is shaping up. And I played it all the way through with the, well, as much as I've played, with the Mistress, aka my Steam controller. Thanks for that, Lockdown. Still very much enjoying it. It did run out of battery at one point, and I'm like, why can't I move? Why is this? And I look down, oh, it's shut off. And I turn it back on, and the light just blinked for a little bit, and then it went down again. I'm like, oh, so you do run out of batteries. It was still using the batteries it came with out of the box. So I was genuinely surprised by that. But I got some new batteries in, and it's really good. 4 chairs.
All right, well, that's 4 chairs for controls. Let's wrap this up. Ven, did you have fun playing Owlboy?
You know, really, I enjoyed myself. I did. That's very fair to say. I think the only negative thing I can say about Owlboy is that it's almost borderline too easy. Because I always get worried when I see something like this, because it's like, old man Ben can't play the hard platformers anymore. Then, you go play something on an emulator, SNES emulator, Genesis, and you can still kick ass at it. It's because a lot of this hipster pixel bullshit is just janked. This isn't jank, man. I was like, boom, right into it. I'm just crushing it. And I'm having a great time. But I did mention Axiom Verge because that's about 2 ons into this game. And that's right where I like to get the game, because that's right where you have to make that decision whether or not you're going to refund it or not. I definitely wouldn't refund this because there's a lot of game left. I think the average playtime without speedrunning this is like 8 to 12 hours, something like that. And I want to go back to it, but I'm definitely going to go back to it. But when I say it's no Axiom Verge, is that game, I couldn't stop playing it for 2 days. I mean, if I had a free moment, I was back into that game playing it. This game, I'm like, I can hold off and wait. I want to get back to it, but it's not that hyper addictive. And Axiom Verge, it's 20 quid. This one's like 24. So it's definitely got that big price tag on it. And yes, I know, but it took 10 years to make it. I was like, that's some really fucking inefficient game development. I'm just being honest. Because, at the end of the day, 10 years to make that means fucking all hashtag Duke Nukem forever. Think about that. What I do wish, though, is that this game had came out maybe 5 years ago, because a lot of people are just pissing and moaning and screaming about the price. Understandably so, because we have had so many horrible hipster pixel games come out that the perceived value of them is not where this game is. They're like, well, it's just another pixel game. And I think it's reasonably fairly priced. You got to look back in the day. Something like this would have cost you, 60 quid. So I think 24, you're going to get it. It's got a lot of love. I'm enjoying it at 2 hours in, and I got to be kind of judicial about how I play it, because every time I sit down and play it, that 10 minutes turns into like 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. And I'm like, whoa, all right, get back out and go be productive and do other things. So, yeah, pretty high compliment. I'm going to have to give this, just a solid 3.
Yeah, this is just a really well put together game. I don't like the comparison to say something like Duke Nukem Forever, because there's a difference between something being in development for 10 years and then being in development hell for 10 years. Because Duke Nukem Forever was made and remade.
Well, this game has been accused multiple times of being in development hell, so...
Yeah. But anyways, I mean, the levels are big, and there's a lot of secrets, and it encourages you to explore. And because you can fly around, that makes it really, really easy and really natural to do. There are some parts where you can't fly, but they force you to brain a little there. Like I said before, carrying the guy around takes a little bit of getting used to, but I like the idea of like switching up your approach, because you can use... I'm at the point where I have the big pirate guy and the little nerdy guy with the tiny gun, and you fight enemies in a very different way, because you have to wait for the guy to reload the big shotgun, but you can use it to burn away foliage and whatnot, which is kind of interesting. The story is exceptionally well written, and with the exception of your douchebag mentor, all the characters are really, really likable. They all have. It's all gotten to the point where, like, when they introduce a new character that actually has some bearing on the story, it's like, I kind of want to spend a little more time with them and, like, sort of learn their deal, because they're interesting. I also like how they really work hard to stay away from tropes. Like right away in the tutorial, they're like, okay, yeah, fly up here. Oh, we're gonna stop you because you're a failure. Ha ha ha! Go fuck yourself. Yeah, so I like how it plays with your expectations of how these things will work out, especially with the right after the second boss. They're like, oh yeah, we're just like, no, you're fucked. You're fucked. The gameplay itself is really solid, and the game doesn't treat you like you're dumb either. The puzzles, they're not really that hard. They require a modicum of thought. If your brain is drug-addled like mine, years and years and years of abuse, it may take you a couple minutes to figure it out, but again, not that bad. And there are all sorts of little homages and whatnot to all the various 16-bit and 8-bit games that you love to play in the past. All in all, it's a fantastic love letter to the SNES Genesis era of adventure platforming games. It is exceptionally well done. I really like this game. I will say, though, on the topic of the price, it is a bit pricey, but there is no part of this game that anyone slacked off on. It is all very, very well done. It is $30 in terms of quality. It's the same thing, not quite with Steven Saus's Roll, where if you like puzzle games, it's worth $30. This is genuinely worth $30. I will give this a solid 3 cheers. Good job, guys.
Now, some of you may remember how I've complained about how 2D Ipser pixel platformers usually do nothing but fuel the delusions of the nostalgia crowd and don't really innovate or push the limits of the genre. Well, Owlboy illustrates that point perfectly by proving that yes, you can actually innovate and you can push the envelope as to what constitutes a retro-inspired 2D platformer. It's a Metroidvania, which leans heavily on the Metroid side, which is often the side of that particular subgenre that I'm least fond of, but I still very much enjoyed it. Why? What is it that makes Owlboy so good when compared to that completely fucking pointless AM2R? Well, for starters, it's not a remake. It's an entirely new story, which is only made all the greater, in my not-so-humble opinion anyway, by having a relatable main character and using the story as the perfect narrative complement for the mechanics. Yeah, it's that spiel again. That is the mark of a great game. That's what puts Owlboy leagues above the rest of the video gaming mire that we call Ipser pixel platformers. It stands wing to shoulder with Half-Life 2 and Silent Hill 2 in the mechanics-driven narrative department. Otis, your main character in Owlboy, like Gordon Freeman in Half-Life, manages to convey more emotion and be more relatable without ever uttering a single goddamn word than Max Caulfield can ever hope to be. Yeah, that glorified para-protagonist pants you wear in Life is Strange has the emotional depth of a travel ironing board when compared to Otis. And Otis's big story isn't completely invalidated by the end of the game either. Now, admittedly, I haven't finished the game, so I don't really know how it's going to end, but I have an idea of how it's going to go, and I'm pretty sure they won't negatively surprise me in any way. And yeah, it's pricey, but you gotta pay for those 10 years of development, and those 10 years of development really did make a difference. 4 chairs.
All right, well, that's 3 chairs for the fun, and we tally all of that up. Owlboy walks away from this with a clean 3 chairs. Check it out, definitely. It's pricey, but gentlemen, final thoughts?
I liked it. Again, I kind of wish it came out a lot earlier, because even knowing what I know and playing, and thanks again for the developers for sending the keys over for it, it, like, psychologically, I understand. He's like, oh, it's another hipster pixel game, and it can't be worth it. It's definitely worth the price they're asking for it. It is very well done. You might want to go check it out. I mean, the puzzles are fun. There's a lot of times that I felt myself as like, oh, look, I'm being stupid on purpose. I can't figure this out. And you do get that little bit of accomplishment, like, yay, I'm smarter in a video game. That's definitely fun to do. So that's pretty much all I can say.
Yeah, the only point in this game where I've stopped and walked away and did something else were the boss fights, because you'll get into a boss fight and the chances are the very first time you're going to fail miserably, you're going to get killed. And I know this is going to sound a bit gauche to say, but this is very much like the Dark Souls way of doing boss fights, is that you go in and you learn the patterns and you die again and again and again until you know all of the patterns and you go, oh, all right, this is what we're doing. And it just, everything clicks into place. The moment that clicks into your head, the game just becomes awesome. And I got to a point where I had 3 boss fights in a row and I couldn't put the controller down. It's like, I want to stop. Let me stop for a little bit. I need to pee.
Okay, yeah. Pedro needs to go to the bathroom. That's the show title. It's very well put together. Like Pedro said, it's like any sort of hipster pixel game where you have to fight a boss and identify all the patterns. And I didn't feel like the patterns were too difficult. It was just like, oh, hey, I'm just being stupid. I need to actually pay attention to what the boss is doing. No, very well put together game. Highly recommend it. It is very well done. Ethan did a fantastic job helping out with the port. Mm-hmm. And I cannot sing this game's praises enough. Go check it out.
Yeah, definitely one thing I will say, because I meant to bring this up. You want hit back in a damn game?
Yeah.
Almost to the detriment of the game.
Yeah, no, actually, speaking of that, I have an anecdote. In the pirate ship where you have to dodge cannonballs, I got ping-ponged off like 8 cannonballs and died before I could even recover. I'm like, why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this?